In a team sport like football, there can be many reasons why players don't get picked by the manager for the playing 11. Sometimes you might be a good player, but you might have had a bit of a disagreement with the coach, so he will keep you out for a little bit. Other times you might be a good player who might not fit into the necessary tactical combinations or the formations that are put into play by the manager, and therefore you might miss out and might be a bench option. However, the recent case of the Indian football team consulting an astrologer to actually make decisions on what the playing 11, what the substitutes, and what even the full squad should be is probably one of the more bizarre cases of, let's say, any sort of an outside factor influencing team selection. In fact, it's landed both the AIFF as well as head coach Igor Stimac in a bit of a soup. But how exactly did it come to this? Why is it that you were using astrology to essentially determine a playing 11 over, say, sporting merit? And what exactly has been said about this by the people who in those times had actually, let's say, even introduced this astrologer, an astrologer who, by the way, was professionally employed and therefore paid a huge amount of money? That's what we're going to talk about in this particular video. So first, let's look at what exactly the situation was, and believe me when I say it is a little bit comical almost. So Igor Stimac, the head coach of the Indian football team, someone who has experience in management, was, instead of using his footballing acumen, using an astrologer to pick what the playing 11 as well as what the squads should be. In fact, he was introduced to this astrologer by, of all people, an AIFF top official. At the time, the Secretary General of the AIFF, Kusal Das, who's of course no longer in that position due to the regime change that had happened recently. However, the simple fact of the matter is that this astrologer, rather than being used on, let's say, even a consultant basis or maybe occasionally being consulted for something, was consulted before pretty much every match for about 1 odd year. And because he was actually employed by the AIFF, was paid a sum that was anything between 12 to 15 lakhs. 12 to 15 lakhs for an astrologer to pick your playing 11 rather than choosing it on sporting merit. If you think you've seen it all, this kind of story convinces you that no, there's still even more things for you to see that will absolutely blow your mind. In fact, it gets even weirder when you look further into the details, because Igor Stimac consulted this astrologer for everything. In fact, there were constant, let's say, WhatsApp messages that were exchanged between the two that actually ensured that Igor Stimac would decide not only his squad but even his playing 11 and substitutes based on whose luck was better at that point in time and who was supposed to be having a good time or a bad time. There were times when he had informed players sit out on the bench and only come on as substitutes because they weren't going through a good time in an astrological sense. Now, this is not to really dump on anyone's beliefs, but in the world of sport, you don't go by astrology or planets or the position of the sun and the moon. You go by sporting merit and pick your best players. That is exactly what didn't happen here, and that's why this is being seen as such a problem, because one of the premier sporting bodies of the world was making decisions not based on sporting merit. But what about the, let's say, the people who were involved at the time who actually brought this individual Bhupesh Sharma to the notice of head coach Igor Stimac? What did they have to say? Well, the then AIFF General Secretary Kusal Das actually spoke to Sports Today, and he told us very clearly that it was him. In fact, he confirmed the news that he was the one who actually introduced him to the coach. He said that, look, we wanted to perform well, so I was the one who put Bhupesh Sharma in touch with the head coach. We even paid for his services, but I don't know anything about team selection. Now, that last part is definitely him washing his hands of the matter, and I can kind of understand why that's the case, because he is no longer really in charge. But the simple fact of the matter is, it's easier said than done now, because he was the person who pretty much oversaw this entire thing. When Kusal Das was in power, this was something that was in fact happening, and it does deserve a lot of questioning as to why is it that you have actually chosen to go this route. In fact, Kusal Das, when speaking to the Indian Express, who were one of the first newspapers to actually break the story, said that we wanted to really qualify for the AFC Asian Cup, and so we went this route. And I would not consider this 12 to 15 lakhs that we paid him a waste of money, because we qualified for the tournament. Considering the fact that India are actually good enough to qualify on sporting merit, I fail to understand that argument. But there is another angle that is worth considering about this entire story, and one that I'll go into a little bit now. It's a well-known fact that Igor Stimac and the AIFF haven't exactly been seeing eye to eye recently, and In fact, you'd remember that Stimac was served a show cause notice by the federation for bringing them into disrepute because he had made some inflammatory comments in public. He's also been very, very pushy with regards to the ISL, the Indian Super League clubs, releasing players for longer national camps and even for tournaments like the Asian Games, which hasn't in fact gone down well with members of the, the not just AIFF members, but also members of the clubs who are in no position obliged to be doing exactly what it is that the head coach asked. So considering all of the conflict in the background, I do find it a little strange that this story, which by the way is not a very new story, we've done videos on this in the past as well, the explosive details that are coming to light now, it's definitely very, very weird timing, and perhaps this is maybe just the fallout between AIFF and Stimac playing out in public. We don't really know. All we know is that this is one thing that has cast a black cloud over Stimac's reign, which is a shame because he's actually done very well to transform the style of play of the Indian team and actually integrate more youngsters into the side. However, if this does, which does seem to be like a beginning of the end moment for Stimac, it would be a very awful way to go about. But the simple fact of the matter is he's the man in the dock, and how this thing goes about, we don't quite know yet, but we know that this is a developing story and there's going to be plenty more things coming your way. If you want to find out about those, of course, you'll have to stay tuned to Sports Today, but to do that, you have to subscribe to our channel and tap that bell icon so you know every time we put out a new video. And if you enjoyed this one, please don't forget to like it and share it with your friends and leave us a comment as well. What are your thoughts on this entire bizarre ordeal? Then you can also go ahead and follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And don't forget to download the ASTROLOGER app as well. Plus, if you're already on the channel, go right ahead, check out some other content we've done. For now, though, from my side, it is bye-bye.